frequently, so they're more gassy. So, or they don't eat a lot of the time, so they can't sleep for longer periods of time. But that's totally different when they're 11 months old and maybe they're starting to like have separation, or I mean, at 7 months old when they're starting to have separation. You know, it's so different and nuanced for different ages. So it's more like we don't want these questions not to be unanswered, but that like we hope and it's okay for them to go to you guys and sure reach out and like all their stuff is over there, but that we'll try and answer generally, like, you know, to just, you know, see if there's needs in these questions. Okay, so do you want to see?
Yeah, I have a theme. So my first theme is eating in the middle of the night and night eating. So it says, when do you know when the baby's ready to eliminate night feeding? How do you know if baby waking up at night is feed or any other reason? How do you know if baby's ready to be night weaned? Increase calories for the day, suggestions for night weaning, recommended by doctor living in a one-bedroom apartment. So I always start with your pediatrician. So usually around 4 months is when my pediatrician says, as long as the baby's gaining weight, he recommends night weaning at 3 months. This is his recommendation. His recommendation is to do a dream feed at like 10 or 11 and then no feeds until morning, so 6 or 7. A lot of people aren't into the dream feed, so that might not be for you. And then he says at 4 months, if weight gain is still good, then no more feeds. But it's definitely a personal decision, so you have to be comfortable with it, and you don't have to listen to everything the pediatrician tells you. But like medically speaking, they usually can tell you when they don't need to eat in the middle of the night. And usually what happens is when they drop the night feed, they start eating more during the day on their own, which is a good sign. In terms of the one-bedroom apartment, I'm living sort of that right now. What you can do is put your baby to sleep like in your living room, if you could put the crib in the living room for a few nights and do that. Or a lot of people put up like those partition things in between if you need like a space.
Even like
earplugs, white noise machine. It's like if you're really bothered by if it's really close to you, I would suggest as well. How do you know if it's a feed or any other reason? This is why actually my pediatrician says doing a dream feed, because he says if you do the dream feed at 10 or 11, and let's say they take 4 ounces or whatever it is, then you know that if they wake up at 2, it shouldn't really be because of hunger. And at 4 months, the drive to sleep is much stronger than the drive to eat. So it's probably they're waking up because of the habit of waking up. And you can feel confident knowing, okay, I did this dream feed, so I'm not going to eat until 6. I'm going to use whatever sleep training method I came up with until it's time to eat again. There's more gentler ways to do it. You can, if you're nursing in the middle of the night, I would suggest switching to a bottle first, because a lot of babies just want, then you'll know, like instantly, are they waking up because the comfort to nurse? Because if they take a bottle, then okay, maybe they're hungry. But what you could do is put like 4 ounces in a bottle, do that for a few nights, and then after a few nights, take it to 3 ounces, take it to 2 ounces until there's none left, and then they're kind of like, why am I waking up for 1 ounce? So I know a lot of people have had success doing that actually, but a lot of people just don't want to deal with the patience and like the rigidness of waking up at 3 a.m. and preparing a bottle. So there's different methods to doing that. How do you teach a baby to put yourself to sleep? Currently needs to be rocked to sleep. A lot of it's just consistency and rocking less and less every night. If you're rocking for 30 minutes, the next night rock for 20 minutes, rock for 15, rock for 10. Slowly try to get out of that habit if you want a gentle way to do it. I mean, a lot of people just cold turkey do it and then come up with like a check and console method where they're going in at intervals, comforting the baby. So there's a couple different ways you can do that.
So there's like a lot of very specific questions in here. I think we'll just go over naps again. Like Arielle was asking, what are the times for naps and what ages? So if your baby's around 4 to 8 months, they should probably be sleeping 3 times a day. I want to say like 4.5, 5 months, just because when they're young, they may need an additional nap in there. But ideally, the time, the biological clock for these babies to be sleeping is around 8:39 a.m. for their first nap. The second nap should be around 12 to 1 p.m. And then the third nap is a cat nap that is usually around 40 minutes, and that happens probably around like 2 hours after the afternoon wake up, and it's just like a short nap to bridge the afternoon nap and nighttime. The first two naps are actually really important. The morning nap is mentally restorative, while the afternoon nap is physically restorative. So a lot of people think naps are just like there for fun and to give us a break, which yes, definitely they're there to give us a break, but they are important developmentally for babies. So it's good for them to actually get these chunks of sleep. And then usually around 8 months, 7, 8 months, they drop the third cat nap. And at that point, you want to try to do a little bit of an earlier bedtime because they may start getting really tired, earlier than they were before since they don't have that small nap in between. And at that point, they'll just be doing those two naps, the like 8:30, 9 a.m. and the 12 to 1 p.m. Nap. And then they get a little older. You want me to go through all of it?
Yeah.
And then they get a little older, and probably around 15 to 18 months, they drop the morning nap and they just take one big afternoon nap. Then they do that for a while, and usually they drop the afternoon nap when they're around 4 years old. Some babies drop it earlier, like 3. Some babies drop it later, but most kids around like 3 to 4 are dropping that nap. So that's how the whole nap schedule goes. But yeah.
Is there a time cap for the nap that might affect nighttime sleep?
Yes. So it depends on the baby's age.
Okay.
Like, if they're very young, it's okay for them to take the cat nap around 4 or 5 p.m., but you really don't want them to sleep that much later because then it interrupts night sleep. But the afternoon nap, you don't really need to cap that. Once they drop the cat nap, which is like the 4 p.m. nap a day, you can let them sleep in the afternoon nap from 12 until 3. That's totally fine and great. Or from 1 to 3 or 4. You don't want them to sleep. Again, it depends on the age. You don't want them to sleep past 4 p.m. when they're like 2 years old. So it depends on the age of the baby and the situation and what time they really go to sleep at night, what time they wake up in the morning. Like, it's all, you have to look at it as a big picture because all the pieces of the puzzle come together.
Right.
It depends what time they wake up in the morning, what time they go to bed at night. But if they're on a right path, that's really what it should be. And bedtime should probably be around 6 to 7 p.m. Some babies go to sleep later and it's fine. And some babies need to go to sleep earlier. Actually, a lot of babies will wake up very early, and parents think if they go to bed later, they're going to wake up later. But actually, the opposite. You want your baby to go to sleep earlier, unless they are not cranky in the morning and they don't need additional sleep. But most babies who are waking up early because they're tired and they wake up really exhausted and they wake up crying at like 5:30 a.m. Usually they're just overtired and they should be going to sleep earlier. So they should be going to sleep even at 5:30 for a little bit until they're back on track, until they've stretched that, and you can then start like pushing bedtime until later. But that's a really big like misconception where people think that they should put their babies to sleep late and they'll wake up late. But it's actually the opposite. When babies are waking up early, it usually means they're going to sleep too late and they're getting too short of sleep time.
What's a good bedtime once they've established like a good nighttime routine?
So it depends on the age, but between 6 and 7 p.m. for like a what are you thinking? You're looking
I'm like
at me
a
like
bad mom.
Around
when
6,
you say
6,
12 by
7.
12, they say like if your life, it depends on also your
You know
life.
what? It's also really
Right.
important because people don't realize that the first chunk of sleep before midnight is actually the deepest sleep for babies and the most restorative. So you don't want to put them to sleep too late because you're taking away from that like really good sleep. Even us as adults, if we go to sleep past midnight, we wake up. Even if we wake up late, we don't get such good sleep. We need that like those early hours are actually really important. So yeah, between 6 and 7 is a good time. As they get older, you can do like 7:30, 8 if they're much older. But like my son's 2.5 and his bedtime is 7 p.m. He does not go to sleep at 7 p.m. And he wakes up at 7 a.m. It's great. If I put him to sleep at 8 p.m., he will probably wake up at 6 a.m. hysterically screaming. So it also depends on the kid and on the age, but usually between 6 and 7:30 pushing is a good time.
Is there any way to get them to sleep later?
Well, she's saying
But then
I know.
earlier.
Anything else?
If they're well-rested babies, then yes, you can slowly push them and see if it works, like 15-minute intervals every few days, and then like keep pushing them and see how that goes. But biologically, babies are not supposed to be waking at 9 a.m. Some will, and that's awesome for all parents that can do that. But most babies biologically wake up between 6 and 7:30 a.m. and 7:30 is late. So that's just how it goes.
Okay, Ruby.
Yes, I have here a question. My baby, 4 or 5 months, does not sleep after night feeds. For example, he sometimes wakes up around 2 a.m. or 4 a.m. after the fallen asleep around 7 p.m. Gets excited and doesn't want to sleep after the night feeds. Are there anything which calms the baby down, fall asleep smoothly after the night? 4 to 5 months. Yeah. So obviously, if the baby's still eating, feeding. So what I usually do if the baby's still feeding at that time, but before I forget, so middle of the night feeding is any feeding after 7 p.m. and before 7 a.m. And our practice is we do not introduce more than 4 ounces, no matter what the baby's age is. Because if you introduce 6 ounces past that, then it's hard to wean that off. So you wanted to just give 4 ounces maximum, and then for babies who doesn't want to sleep, let's say you're giving a bottle, my tip is for you to use a slower nipple. So if the babies if you're using like a 1 nipple, I usually would switch that middle of the night feeds to a preemie nipple or 0, depends on the bottle. Why? Because then the baby will would take more effort to eat, and then soon enough they will realize like I'd rather sleep than eat, and it works really well. But then again, of course, that baby still needs that calorie during the night, and you're trying to win that off, so you have to offer that at some point during the day. That's why we also introduce some snack feeds in between full feeding, until such time that the baby will just be sleeping and would up the appetite during the day. So yeah, that's my suggestion. Try to make sure that your goal is to put the baby back to sleep, and changing the nipple size helps a lot. And then anything that calms the baby down. Again, my practice is like the routine of the baby spa.
Would you do that though at like middle of the night?
Oh no, I think this is another question. This is a different question, like how to calm down.
People have said.
My baby woke up last night.
Will be like, we have to start the whole routine over again in the middle of the night, and they're just like, there's those times. I don't know if they mean this, but like those times when like they're just not lying down in the middle of the night. Like
I would say think about what you're doing. Like, are you turning on a light? Are you making a lot of eye contact with the baby? Like, really, especially at 5 months, like, try and make it in and out really quick, in the dark, feed, burp, put down, and like don't give the baby any reason for he or she to want you to come back in. Like, it should just be very quick into the point.
And that goes with a toddler as well? How
Well,
would you deal with a toddler?
Oh,
like
feeding.
You mean if they're feeding in the middle of the night?
No, if they're waking up in the middle of the night.
Well, it depends on the whole situation. Like, what's going on?
What if you don't know? No idea. They can't tell you, or they're not telling
And they
you.
have
they
been
don't
sleeping well up to this point.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah. So you probably have to maybe retrain them and teach them how to fall asleep again and how to stay asleep by themselves. They may, or they're going through something and it's just like a few days and it'll pass, but you have to just stay consistent, and you're gonna go in and say something great, but don't start doing all these things to see what happens, what works and what doesn't, and then start introducing bad habits, and then they're all confused and you're all confused, and it becomes like this mess of a situation. So the idea is for you to just like trust yourself, trust your gut as a parent, and be like, what's the situation? is this going to go away? Does my baby actually need me? Or are they just crying because they want to play in the middle of the night? You know,
Yeah,
so
there's questions about like, what do I do when my child just wants to play, or my 18-month-old?
right. So you need to just, as a parent, like know what's going on. Like if they are in distress, they need you, then yeah, you attend to that. But if they're waking up every night because that one night before you came in and you like cuddled them and gave them hugs and kisses and it was so much fun, and they wake up the next night, then they're waking up because they loved what you did the night before. So you have to unfortunately break that and, you know, let them know it's time to sleep. We can cuddle in the morning.
And trust your baby's capabilities.
Exactly. And trust yourself. And if you're confident, your baby will sense that and will feel that, and they'll be like, okay, my mom knows what she's doing, or my dad knows what he's doing, and I can trust them and I can go back to sleep because they know what's best for me and this is what they're telling me to do right now.
But I feel bad that I totally rerouted the.
No, it's okay. I mean, there's another question here. Should naps be capped at 2 hours? I think it depends on the age. But most babies, again, based on my experience, they can really do like nap 2 hours straight. Some others will nap for 40 minutes, wake up and nap again before the next feeding. What time should last nap of the day not go past 4:30, 5:30? It all depends on the age, and depends on when they woke up like last. So
I would say for like a under, and you can help me know either. Under like 4 to 5 months, I would say like 5 p.m. is the latest, and then starting at like 5 months, start pushing it back to like 4:30, 4 o'clock.
Yeah.
And they should be awake by that time. So the nap should end by 4:30. By like 5 months, I would say.
The end of, repeat that.
The last nap of the day should end by 4:30 at like 5 months.
Yeah, it depends their nighttime and what they wake up. But again, yeah, probably like by 5 p.m. they should be awake, I would say.
Yeah. I would say my 4-month-old right now, like 5 p.m. is like the latest. I will like let her, like I like to put her down so that she's up by 5, so I can put her down by 7. So I don't let her be up more than 2 hours at this point. But it's, you know,
I did a 20-minute, like 5 to 5:20 nap for a while when
Yeah.
she was young, but like I didn't
Yeah.
know that.
I mean,
but it didn't affect
it's
it.
fine.
but that might time for you. I mean, like, you know, it's when they're younger, it's really hard to say. Like 5:30 could work, and then put them to bed at 7:30, and 7:30 bedtime might be fine for you. So, yeah.
I have one question
Yes.
here. Is pacifier a bad crutch for nighttime? So it is if you have to go in 20 times to put the pacifier back in the baby's mouth. So ideally you put it in their mouth, and then if they wake up once and you want to put it back in, fine, but it shouldn't be this habit where you have to go in all night to put the pacifier back in. So usually it's best if babies go through different sleep cycles. So they go into deep sleep, and then they go into light sleep, and they go back into deep sleep. And so when they go into the light sleep, if they wake up and their pacifier isn't in their mouth, or whatever the crutch was, whether it was, like we said before, the bottle or the boob, if they don't have it, it's going to be very hard for them to fall asleep without that. So what you want to do is teach them to fall asleep without it. So it's great if they can fall asleep at night with a pacifier, but I wouldn't recommend going in there all night and re-sticking it into their mouth, because then they won't know how to do it on their own until they're old enough to do it themselves, and that may be a very long time. So I think, again, teach your babies to fall asleep on their own, stay asleep, without having to have something. But if you want to put the pacifier in to fall asleep at the start of the night, that's great. Just don't go back in there and keep plugging it.
Say when